Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that nearly 100 years after Joseph Mohr and Franz Gruber first performed their original song, Silent Night, on December 24, 1818, soldiers climbed out of their 1914 World War I trenches on Christmas Eve to cross 100 yards of no man's land to join with their enemies in singing Silent Night, Night. Follow us as we witness a miracle along 500 miles of the Western Front during World War I and listen to the remarkable story of the Christmas Truce.
So if I asked you to name, one song that's known basically everywhere on Earth.
Silent Night has to be right at the top of that list.
Exactly. But the story behind it, what you might not know, is that it holds a history that's so much richer and honestly way more dramatic than the gentle carol we all hear.
It really is. Today we're taking all these sources you've shared, historical records, testimonies from soldiers, and we're going to trace this unbelievable 200-year story.
Yeah, our mission here is to follow its path from this tiny, struggling Austrian village
all the way to the trenches of the Western Front, where it sparked this brief, incredible moment of peace.
And the setup is just perfect, because this world-famous carol, known in over 300 languages?
At least.
It exists today simply because the organ was broken.
It's an incredible origin story, and it acts as this bridge between these huge historical conflicts. It was written right after the Napoleonic Wars, around 1816, 1818, when Europe was just reeling.
And then it has its biggest moment almost 100 years later.
A century later, yeah. In 1914, it just interrupts the industrialized horror of World War I. That backdrop of suffering is... It's absolutely essential to the story.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's go right back to the beginning. We're in a little village called Oberndorf in Austria.
And the date is Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1818, St. Nicholas Church.
And the two creators are a duo, right?
That's right. You have Reverend Joseph Mohr, a young priest who wrote this 6-stanza poem back in 1816.
Okay, so he wrote the words 2 years earlier.
Exactly. And then you have Franz Gruber, who was the local school teacher and the church organist, and he was the one who had to set it to music.
And that timeline you mentioned is so important. Mohr wrote this poem in 1816, not really as a hymn, but more like a reflection.
It was personal. The sources say he wrote it in Salzburg after a summer of just intense violence. It was all tied to the political fallout after Napoleon's defeat.
So this wasn't just some, happy little Christmas poem.
No, not at all. He was writing what was essentially post-trauma liturgy. The people in Oberndorf had been through almost 2 decades of conflict. Famine, economic collapse. They felt hopeless, abandoned.
So the song was meant as a comfort.
Profound comfort. It had to be simple, deeply personal, and give some kind of hope to a community that really had nothing left.
Which connects directly to the music itself. Because, like we say, the organ at St. Nicholas Church was broken.
Completely broken. Some sources say mice actually damaged the bellows.
We're kidding. Mice.
It's one of the theories, or maybe it was just dampness. But the point is, Gruber couldn't use it.
So he's stuck. It's Christmas Eve.
He has hours to solve this problem. He can't just cancel the music. So he quickly writes an arrangement for 2 solo voices, a choir and a guitar.
Wait, so if the main church instrument is down, why not just, have everyone sing a cappella? Why a guitar? That seems unusual for a church service back then.
That is a great question. And it really speaks to Gruber's genius. Look, the organ, that represented formal, institutional religion.
That's right. Big, powerful.
Very. But by using a guitar, this common, intimate instrument, he instantly made it more accessible. The music was simple, the melody was gentle, the choir came in on the last 2 lines of each verse with this beautiful 4-part harmony.
But the core of it was stripped down.
So stripped down. And that simplicity, which was born out of pure necessity, that's what made the song so portable. It didn't need a huge cathedral to travel.
That's the key insight, isn't it? It became a global hit because it was so simple.
Precisely. It was picked up by traveling folk singers like the Rayner family and the Strasser siblings. They took it across Europe and eventually to America.
And the sources show how fast it spread. It caught on almost instantly in that region.
Oh, yeah. They've sung it continuously in Oberndorf ever since, and its reach just exploded.
You said over 300 languages?
Over 300 languages. It's one of the most widely performed pieces of music in human history. The first English translation was performed in New York City in 1851.
So by the time 1914 rolls around,
It's not some obscure carol. It's a universally recognized cultural touchstone. Everyone knew it.
which sets the stage perfectly.
Yeah.
We need to make this big transition now from the song's quiet birth in 1818 to its most profound moment a century later.
We're moving from a peaceful Austrian parish to the frozen, brutal trenches of World War I.
On Christmas Eve, 1914, just a few months into the war, Silent Night, or Still Knock to the Germans, it performs what people called a miracle.
The Christmas miracle. Yeah, along roughly 500 miles of the Western Front.
The story starts in the evening. You have these soldiers just living in this freezing mud, staring across 100 yards of no man's land at the enemy.
And the sources, the letters from the men who were there are just so vivid. Private Albert Mohr, a British soldier, he described it as a beautiful moonlit night, frost on the ground, white almost everywhere.
The cold and the snow must have made everything so quiet.
And then out of that quiet, the German lines started to sing.
Just singing the lyrics to Still Knock.
Can you imagine hearing that sound cutting through the usual noise of war?
It must have been surreal. We have an account from a young British officer, Lieutenant Charles Brewer.
Yeah, he was only 19. He later wrote about how he heard this faint tune and he recognized it, but he couldn't understand the German words. Still Nacht, heilige Nacht.
He probably thought it was a trick.
At first. But then, after the Germans finished singing, the British trenches just hurt them. They started cheering.
An involuntary reaction.
Completely. And then the British troops immediately responded by singing the English lyrics to the exact same melody.
A call and response. They found this shared vocabulary that no one knew they had.
And it escalated from there. Graham Williams from the 5th London Rifle Brigade, he described them going back and forth, trading carols.
But then came the big moment.
The big one. The Allies started singing, "O Come All Ye Faithful," and the Germans, on their side, immediately joined in.
Singing the same hymn.
The exact same hymn, but they were singing it in the original Latin, Adeste Fidelis.
Wow. So they weren't just singing the same tune. They were recognizing the same faith, the same story, across enemy lines.
Singing it at the same time in two different languages, separated by a field of death. The melody was a stronger bond than their orders were.
It's just phenomenal. It really forces you to ask about the power of a shared tradition, doesn't it? The story of a savior's birth, of peace, was suddenly being sung by men who were trying to kill each other hours before.
The music became the common language. Not English, not German.
And that music, that moment, it wasn't the end. It was actually the beginning of something even more unbelievable.
Right. It moved from singing on Christmas Eve to action on Christmas Day, the legendary truce.
The music gave them the courage.
It did. On Christmas Day, soldiers started to tentatively, very dangerously, step out of their trenches and cross that 100-yard barrier. They crossed into no man's land.
And the sources are clear. This wasn't some top-down order. It was spontaneous.
Completely decentralized. It just happened in pockets all along the front.
And it was this incredible mix of the absurd and the profound. German soldiers calling out Merry Christmas in broken English.
Holding up signs that read, "You no shoot, we no shoot," just acknowledging the insane risk they were all taking together.
And then the activities they did. It's like an instant return to being human.
Yeah, the recollections describe swapping little gifts. German sausages for British tobacco, sharing photos of their families.
And my favorite detail. A British soldier getting his hair cut by a German barber.
Right there in the middle of a battlefield. It just captures the complete bizarre reversal of the logic of war.
But it wasn't all lighthearted. There was a solemn side to it.
A very solemn side. In many places, the truce allowed them to finally bury their dead. Men who had been lying out in no man's land for weeks. That shared act of mourning, of giving dignity to the fallen, that was maybe the most powerful part of it all.
There's a quote from a British corporal, John Ferguson, that just sums it all up. He wrote, "Here we were laughing and chatting to men whom only a few hours before we were trying to kill."
The sheer insanity of it. But we also have to add some complexity here. The truce was moving, but it was also very fragile.
It wasn't universal.
Not at all. And it didn't last. The war machine was just too powerful. High-ranking officers condemned it.
And it was still incredibly dangerous.
Absolutely. The records show at least 2 instances of soldiers being shot and killed as they tried to emerge from their trenches in other sectors.
And the war just resumed.
It did. In most places, it was back on right after Christmas, as if nothing had happened. A few ceasefires lasted till New Year's, but that was rare. The war went on for 4 more brutal years.
So what does this all mean? We followed Silent Night from this small starting village after one war to it becoming the catalyst for a pause in another, a century later.
It means that the song's simple structure, the thing that was forced on it by a broken organ, that's what allowed it to become this universal bridge. For a brief, shining moment, in the middle of the most horrific war imaginable, peace and unity won.
It shows how human we are.
Deeply human, capable of both incredible violence and this immediate, profound connection, all mediated by a simple, shared melody.
The original lyrics were about finding peace after the despair of the Napoleonic Wars. And then the song itself helps to spark the Christmas Truce.
It's a perfect circle.
It is, and it leaves you with this question to think about. Given its power to cut through political lines and, the rhetoric of war, what contemporary conflicts, what divisions that seem impossible to cross could be softened, even for a moment, if we just found a truly shared cultural touchstone? Whether it's a song or a story or a tradition, it's a powerful thought for you to mull over as you hear this simple, powerful carol this season. Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the home school for faith and family.